Welcome back, everyone, to the Tron podcast of Randomness and Nothing. I'm your host, Rashad Woods. Today, we have a very special guest today, Mr. Nicholas Smith, all about the power of positivity and how to become a giant in life. I love some of the speeches I heard, and he's an author, speaker, and all around really good guy from our beautiful state of Utah. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
It's great. So, first of all, I got a chance to listen to you speak, and you're coming from a place of experience because it's not like you're just telling people how to be. You came from things that happened in your life and you realized where you were at and where you wanted to be, and you pulled yourself up, and you're inspiring people with your books, your speeches, and your company as well too. So please tell me about yourself.
Yeah, so I was, I'll go through a little bit of history here.
Yeah, for
So I'm
sure.
number 9 of 11 kids. My dad died when I was 2 years old, and my mom was mentally ill. So we struggled,
Oh my goodness.
like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But, during that developmental period, I didn't get the care that, a healthy kid could have.
Of course.
And
Sorry.
so, throughout life, I didn't realize what was happening in my life until I had some awakening. And so it was in 2009 that I was broke. I was bankrupt. I was struggling. Somebody said, you got to meet this guy named Steve Hardison. So I reached out to him. He calls me back when I'm in the parking lot of a welfare center getting food for my family. So I just lost my house. I feel as small and insignificant as you can even imagine, so these patterns from childhood kind of bled through to create all that. But I didn't know that at the time. I was blaming life. I was upset. And I talked to this guy, and he metaphorically puts me on his shoulder and stands up and shows me who I am. He tells me, not tells me things, but shows me through his experiences. And I remember asking him a question. I said, can you? And he said, yes. And I said, how can you say yes if you don't know what I'm going to ask? And he said, there is nothing you can ask me that's bigger than me. And that landed so hard, I put it into my book, The Giants and the Smalls, as one of the statements. So that book came from the seed of that conversation. So I was listening to Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson.
Yeah.
And I was driving to work every day, and I was seeing these people living these giant lives. I'm like, why? Why are they living these giant lives? I feel insignificant and small. And this book downloaded. It just poured into me, and I'd capture it on my microphone, and while I'm driving to work, I would record this book, run home, transcribe it, read it to my kids. But it became the foundation of everything that followed. I started waking up at that point. So in that conversation, to my behaviors and my patterns and how I was creating everything in my life, and I had no idea of that. I wasn't taught that when I was a kid. We didn't have money growing up. I'm lost in the mix, and nine kids. My mom couldn't give us the attention, right? She was struggling with her own stuff. And so I learned that she did the best she could with what she had. But it was up to me at that point to parent myself and to learn all these things. So that's a brief history.
And the thing is about it is like, that's an experience that, you hear too often. People could really fall off the rails because a situation like that, I mean, you've read stories, really sad ones where, it ends up foster system, criminal behavior, and obviously you went through your own struggles, but the fact that it didn't lead, and I don't want to assume that you're here where you are right now instead of somewhere else, is a testament to willpower and strength, because unfortunately a lot of people don't have that hindsight to say, I got to find a way to pick myself up. From a very dire set of circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's crazy. I hate to cut you off. Go ahead, please.
Oh, well, I just, just the thought of that is, I don't know how we didn't end up in foster care with that.
Right. Yeah.
And so, that is a blessing.
Right.
Because to wake up is one of the hardest things people are ever going to do.
For sure.
Not an easy journey.
Not at all. Not at all. And, and I think the most interesting part is, that to lose your father at such a young age and to not have, that direction, that structure, and have to grow up that fast, with the limited resources that were available to you. It's a testament to your willpower and strength that you started to pass on to other people. And one of the things I thought was interesting was when you gave that speech, I saw on your website, was the difference between achievements and accomplishments. Because sometimes people conflate the two, right? And so I want to hear your definition. I don't want to speak for you. So please, what have you figured out?
The book, The Art of Accomplishment, was my first book. And accomplishments are little things you hit along the way. So if you look at the word purpose, right, the word purpose means meaning forward, and pose meaning to pause. And so people get all hung up on their purpose. I don't know what my purpose is. But purposes are made up. They're created. You'll have myriad purposes in life. So
Mhm.
accomplishments are all those purposes.
Yes.
Achievements are the results of those purposes. Achievements are the trophies, like you performed a
Yeah.
certain way. So that's an achievement. But
Right.
people get so hung up on the achievement that they start to judge themselves by the achievements,
Of
not the
course.
accomplishments, right?
100%. 100%.
And so to shift the mindset to creating myriad purposes, as many as you can get, and to accomplish those. My favorite definition of the word perfection is from the Latin perficere. It's the etymology on it. And it means to perform and to complete.
Right.
And
Right.
so we think flawlessness, and when you really look at perfection, it's doing something and finishing it. An
Absolutely.
accomplishment is that, whether it's successful or not doesn't matter, right?
Right. I
So,
think it's
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I love the way that you define that because people sell themselves short of what they've really done.
Yeah, they do. They do, because we look at the achievements, because the world teaches us you're only successful based on your achievements, right? But look
Right.
at what it took for you to be who you are today. You look at this
Absolutely.
show that you're on, Rashad. It's incredible. 70 plus interviews, right?
Oof.
And you're doing this, building this amazing thing. You're raising, I believe, a family, and
Yes.
it's like it's an accomplishment. This is an accomplishment. All these things made you you, and you wouldn't be you
Mhm.
the way you are today without any of them.
Right. It's a testament to willpower and strength. And, that's one of the reasons I created this show was because the world is bigger than your zip code. The world is bigger than, going to the grocery store,
Yeah,
going through the same, green light. You
yeah,
can memorize, you can drive and not even know the names of the streets, but you know where to turn. And so
yeah,
you become predictable, right? And then your predictability becomes your world. So it's very easy to get, sometimes it's good just to drive to somewhere you're not familiar. So that way you actually have to pay attention to markers, locations, where things are at. It sounds corny and cheesy, but sometimes it could be the town next to you, right? It
yeah. I
could
like that.
literally be 5 miles away, and you're like, I don't know what's around here, but it's
Yeah,
therapeutic, right? Because you're like, okay, this is a little bit different. I got to be a little more sensory. I can't go on cruise control, so to speak, right?
right.
So, just briefly, and I don't want to over talk you. I did martial arts for a long time.
Yeah,
I have a brown belt in Taekwondo. I have a black belt in Tong Sudo, which is both Korean styles, but they're stand-up striking arts. And so, great teachers, great instructions. But I said, okay, I want to do something different. So, kind of to our point, I started doing jujitsu and Muay Thai, and everything that I was good at didn't matter.
yeah, yeah,
Everything I was good at didn't matter. And so, like, you have to suck. I love the way when I watched your videos, when you're like, dude, you have to learn how to suck to be good at something.
yeah,
I suck at this. I really actually suck, right?
yeah.
And it's humbling, but it's therapeutic too.
Well, okay, you're using some amazing words here.
Yeah.
Okay, humbling means teachable, and so yeah, it is humbling, because now you're teachable. Because if we got it figured out, there's nothing to learn.
Oh,
And the beauty of automation is the mind is designed for automation. So when you look at the neurobiology and how when you do something over and over again, you're going to create automation out of it. My favorite quote from the book is, to get what you want out of life, you got to be willing to suck at something
yep.
long enough to get
Yep.
good at it, right?
Yep.
And you look at, speaking of that, is Dyson, the guy that created the vacuum, had 5,000 vacuums that didn't suck, right? Before he got one that did. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar company, right?
Yeah.
But it's a law of nature that you've
Yep.
got to fail. And the word failure means a negative yield from your efforts. That's all it means. It means
Exactly.
that what you did didn't work. So try something else. Acorns, the oak tree lays 10,000 seeds a year, only one takes. Sea
Mm-hmm.
turtles lay 1,000 eggs, only one lives to adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
The sun puts out so much energy, only a billionth hits the earth, but it's enough. That billionth is enough to provide all the life that we see today.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so don't be afraid of failure. Lean into failure, because failure is the process. You don't think God could have just made it a one and one?
Right. Right.
Like, look at us. How
Right.
many, not to get dirty here, but how many sperm were lost to create you, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
God could have done a one for one, but he
Right.
didn't. And there's a lesson in that for us. You are meant to fail. It's part
Right.
of the process. It's
It
part of
sure is.
nature. Yeah.
It sure is.
So go be willing to do it.
And I think, like, I'll stick to martial arts because that's kind of my wheelhouse. Like,
Yeah.
we laugh at the person that gets knocked out, right? We laugh because it's a good meme. It's a good, like, clip, ha, ha, ha. There's some
Yeah.
knockouts last night in MMA and UFC. But it's like, you do realize that guy or that woman is at the pinnacle of their profession. They're one of a very select group of people that get to do this for a living.
Wow.
Whether
Yeah.
whether whether somebody loses the Super Bowl, right? And you're like, you get all the boos, and they're like, listen, man, I'm still one of only like, 500 people who get to do this every single day,
Oh,
So
that's such a valid point.
when you realize that they're at the peak of their profession, or an actor who didn't win the Oscar, they're
Yeah.
still one of the top 10 people at their profession in that year. Maybe not all time, but at that given moment, they're still one of the best at their profession to get a chance to be nominated for something. They may not have gone home with the golden trophy, but how many people can say they've got an Oscar nomination, a Tony nomination? And
Yeah. Wow.
right. And so when you start measuring that, you're like, man, they've still accomplished a heck of a lot.
That's so good, right? Because but then we judge ourselves by their standards.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think the biggest thing I've learned is when this man said to me in the parking lot, I can, and he clarified later, years later, he said, it's not only that I can do it, but I can enroll others to be able to
Mm,
do it with me. And so there was really nothing off the table that we can't do.
right.
But when we start to measure ourselves against somebody else, what happens is we look at our reality as it is and we look at the ideal, right? Either that ideal or our own. And then we
Mhm.
measure ourselves in that gap there. And all suffering is created in that gap between reality and what we
Mhm.
think should be. If you look at anxiety, Lisa Feldman Barrett says that anxiety is when you think you're not measuring up to the ideals you think others have for you.
Right.
And Brad
Right.
Blanton says that those ideals that you think they have are your own ideals projected on them. So you're really just measuring yourself. So that gap is all made up.
Of course.
And that,
Absolutely.
just one more thing on there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this is, the word passion means to suffer. The suffering that I'm talking about in this gap is all that judgment that we give ourselves for not measuring up to our ideal. And
Right.
and you turn that into a passion,
Yeah.
you don't care about losing or failing or suffering. You're like, I want this.
Right. And then what happens is too is unfortunately social media is taking place where they see something like these body influencers, right? And like people got to understand something first of all. Like a lot of these people, and I'm not disrespecting the ones that do it legit. There's a lot of people who are literally juiced to the gills, right? Let's just call it for
Yeah.
what it is, right?
Yeah.
Just call it for
Yeah.
what it is, right? And people only see the image in front of them, and they say, "Well, I don't have that." Well,
Yeah.
first of all, it starts in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
The first way to get in shape is going to start in the kitchen. I'm far from a nutritionist or a bodybuilding expert, but don't measure yourself against that. Measure it to how you fit in your clothes. Measure how you want to make it look
Yeah.
at the beach. Measure how you want to fit, and lose a certain amount of pounds and weight. And
Yeah.
a lot of times people, unfortunately, I always look at it like this, and this is how I've kind of gotten to a better mind state. People like will see like a new musical artist and they're like, oh, they're brand new. They're out of left field. It's like, no, that person was performing, at birthday parties and weddings and with 300, 400 people in
Yeah.
attendance. And they like, or they say, hey man, I was waiting tables, trying to get a break working, full time. And they finally got a break, but you only see the end result when you see them on Netflix or Amazon or
Right.
Disney. But you didn't see like, hey, for 10 years, I was a starving artist, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, to tell on myself, 15 years is how long it's been. 16 years since I had that conversation in the parking lot. I got divorced in 2019. I got
Sorry to hear
diagnosed with anxiety disorder in 2017. My
that.
world completely fell apart again. I didn't learn the lessons in 2009. It wasn't one and done.
Hmm.
And then in 2020, we went to launch this book, The Giants and the Smalls, and COVID hit. March 17th, we were doing our launch, and COVID hit and shut down the entire world. And I tell people it was like our Kickstarter took off like an albatross. Have you ever seen them run across the beach or the water and they're just like jalopy and floppy and they can't move, and then finally they get off the shore somehow and then they soar. And our Kickstarter campaign went like every day. It was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Oh my goodness.
And then it just launched, and still I'm not out of the woods yet. I work
Mhm.
every day to build. I've done my podcast for 5 years now.
Yeah.
I've built a community online, and it doesn't feed my family. I still work full time. Some of us, you and I talked about this, don't come from a wealthy family. Most of us don't come
Hmm.
from a wealthy family. It's a small percentage that do.
Right.
So this idea of, oh, I came from a poor family, I get it because I came from a poor family.
Right.
But it's whatever you justify in you stops you,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Right. No question. And you start to put ceilings on yourself, and then what'll happen is that you gravitate towards those personalities that feed your negativity.
Mm,
Right. It sounds corny. It sounds cliche. Right. But it
no,
really does. Right. So like again, I always use martial arts as an analogy because when you go to the door, your ego stops because you will find out real quick inside of any place with any shred of credibility, you're going to find out who you really are and who you aren't because there's some tanks in there, right?
Right.
And they don't care where you came from. They don't care your income status and your zip code don't matter when
Yeah.
you're going inside of to try to train. It's a very, it's just like sports. It's a place where, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't matter who your father or who your mother are. If somebody wants to whoop your butt, you're going to get your butt whooped, right? Because at the end of the day, if they're more talented than you, that's all that matters. So whatever baggage you're carrying on a personal level, you better put to the door. You better leave it in the car, so to speak. So what I did want to talk about was just your company as a whole. So I love that when you said, a giant can take small steps, but it seems large, right? So how did you get to the analogy of giants and smalls as a whole?
Yeah, so it was that experience in my car back in '09. I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving to my brother's work. He's an hour from here. I was commuting, listening to Who Moved My Cheese,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought, man, I love the style of this. It's a kid's book, but it's for adults. So
Right.
that inspired the idea. And then thinking about what would I write about, it was seeing people live what I thought were giant lives.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be that they just all inherited it,
No,
right?
no.
And so that was the first use of the word giant. Why are they living these giant lives? And that's in the book. Those are the questions I was asking in the book. So this book is a story about me, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not. Like, this story is about every person. This is your story. This is your inner world. And the small was me thinking how insignificant I was in comparison to them.
Right, right.
And everything they have is the same stuff I have access to,
Exactly,
the same
exactly,
universe, the
exactly.
same possibilities. So I didn't want to teach my kids that, you can only do things in your box. I have a mentor who said, every time you believe a belief, it becomes limiting by the nature of believing it. You just
Mm-hmm.
boxed in the universe and said, that's it.
Right,
And so,
right.
I have a son who just graduated special forces training in the Marine Corps.
That's
One of
amazing.
the hardest things anybody could
That's
ever do physically,
oh,
mentally. They just
I've
gassed him yesterday.
I've talked to Marines, and I'm sitting back and saying, like, you want to talk about like what
Yep.
your day was versus theirs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to make it a commitment like that at a young age, right?
At a young age. He's 18 years old,
Unbelievable.
and he went straight from high school into BRC training, and
Mm.
he stuck it out. This kid, he wanted to quit. He was on a fractured foot. He couldn't get it checked because they'll boot him out if he
Mm.
does. So he's going through on a broken ankle. I guess the gas that they put him through yesterday was so intense that he wanted to jump off a cliff. Like, I didn't know this. So you talk about hard things, and my son, I feel proud of him because he's the one that did the work. I feel like I was able to help him install in his mindset something that would help him do that.
Yep.
Now, I don't get credit for that. That's him. He did
Right.
that. I didn't do
Right.
that. I've never been gassed. But
No. No.
I wanted to teach my kids, you are responsible for your life. You can create anything you can imagine. You have
Yes.
all the resources around you to create that. And
Right.
that's my entire program is you already are equipped by God with
Mm.
everything you need to create anything you can imagine. The
For
only thing
sure.
in the way is some old programming and your own judgments.
Right. It was like, I obviously making this podcast is nowhere close to serving the country, and
Yeah.
and credit to him and everyone else that
Yeah.
puts their
Thank
lives on the
you.
line for our country. And that's a beautiful thing. I had to get out of my mind, similar to you that like, oh man, am I going to suck at this? Are people going to judge if I create a podcast? And even if people who I didn't even know, and then it was like, dude, if I suck, so what?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who
So
cares,
what?
right? Right? Like, it's almost like it's like when the dude a couple of years ago, that William Hung dude, got on American Idol and he was terrible. And it was like he still got up there and he didn't care. Like, we can laugh, we can joke,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
internet can be a cruel place, I get all that. But listen, man, if at the end of the day somebody's like, I'm gonna shoot my shot, I'm going to shoot my shot. And I would rather have gotten, people can say it, they'd rather get knocked out in the ring than be in the bleachers and stands, because
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
they were in the ring getting knocked out. And you know what I mean? And you'll hear from boxers or professional, they'll say, man, or NFL players, you'll hear it, and they have CTE, and they'll be like, would you do that again? They'll be like, I chased my dream. And you're like,
Yeah.
wow, like, wow, you know,
Yeah.
there was not an inch of regret from a lot of those people, right? Because they got a chance to chase what they wanted to do. And,
Yeah.
right or wrong, that's what they did. They didn't put that limitation on themselves. They made up their mind to get up at 6 o'clock on Saturday mornings, 6 o'clock on Sunday mornings, and do the things that people weren't willing to do,
Yeah.
to get where they wanted to get. Now, about your book, right?
Yes.
So, like, Is there some things that are specific? Where can people find it?
Yeah.
And just a little bit more about that book.
Everything is on my12journeys.com.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we run our programs. We install a new operating system, and so everything in your world is a shadow of whatever you think you are, whoever
Mm-hmm.
that is, right? So we help shift that for people. The book is on there. It's down at the very bottom of the page.
Yeah.
It's also on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon and search up my name, or
Yeah.
you just Google it, it'll pop
Yep.
right up. Nicholas
For
Townsend
sure.
Smith. But yeah, I went to Amazon for global distribution because
Wonderful.
it was hard to just manually ship things. So I went that
Oh my
way.
goodness.
Yeah.
And I think what happens too. You obviously you can speak on this. You get to a certain age bracket in life, and sometimes it could be the house mother, it could be the dad busting his butt to provide food on the table for his kids. You sometimes can think that's all you are, right? And it's very
Yeah.
easy to just I'm just going to go to work, take the kids to soccer practice, baseball, whatever. Then Saturdays hit, maybe I'll catch a movie, cut the grass, hold the barbecue in the backyard or shovel the snow. And then
Right.
your world becomes very small,
Yeah.
right? It becomes very limiting. And then
Yeah.
you could, again, to the beginning, you can kind of autopilot the things you do. You're pumping gas, you're not really paying attention,
Yeah.
and it becomes to the point where if you're not careful, it will go from 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 what you do to all you do, right?
Yeah.
And that's a scary place to be, particularly when it starts affecting you mentally, because
Yeah.
then there will be negative things that will come from that. You're going to gain weight. You don't feel like working out. You'll think it can lead to, for lack of a better term, comfortability in your own world, which is fine if that's all you want to do. But when you start measuring your failures, if you think you're a failure because that's all you do, that's when bad things can happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. There, what I hear in that is we don't sit still. The body atrophies. When you don't use it, it loses it on purpose for efficiency.
Yep.
We don't have to sustain that.
Nope.
So lazy people aren't lazy. They're efficient. The mind is geared toward laziness, we'll call it.
Correct.
But you don't sit still. It's not like you gain something, you got it forever. And
Mm-hmm.
so you either have to be constantly working towards something or
Right.
constantly working towards something because you're going to go backward. You're not going to just stay where you are.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's a life principle is what you're not using, you will lose.
And it's a beautiful analogy for companies too, right? Because you
Yeah.
talk about companies that evolved versus companies that didn't evolve, right?
Yeah.
You look at like a Radio Shack, you look at like a Circuit City, and you realize that they didn't evolve. And the reason why, Apple kept going is because they go from one little, archaic computer, which was ahead of its time at the time, to
Right.
then, okay, now they're going to home computers. Now they're coming to phones. Now they're coming to tablets. Now they're coming to devices. Now it's television and streaming. So they kept evolving, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right, you keep evolving, right? And so there's another analogy that I talked to a previous guest. He was actually from Romania. It's
Yeah.
also knowing your position, so to speak. Like Burger King, McDonald's are globalized fast food joints, right? But the first fast food joint actually was White Castle, right? But White
Mm.
Castle, the reason why White Castle has survived since when it first came out, the first burger fast food joint, it stayed in its lane. It said, hey, it's still owned by family, it's still private, and they sell like their burgers in grocery stores and everything. So they carved out a niche, and then they get movies made about it, right? Like, oh,
Mm.
you go to White Castle, and right, it's late after hours joint. But they were like, listen, I can't compete with these conglomerate, massive Happy Meal places, but I'm going to stay in this little respective lane here and not overshoot my moon. And then next thing you know, I overexpanded. Yeah,
This is huge. Can
yeah,
I speak to that a little bit?
absolutely.
Yeah, this is huge because you hear this, oh, you can do anything. You can be anything. I don't think that's fully true.
No,
Okay. Let's be real. I will not walk on an NBA court and shoot a shot and get recruited right out of the gate, man. It is not happening. Right. But
hmm
in my lane, like you said, in my gifts, Pablo Picasso says that the meaning of life is to find your gift and the purpose of life is to give it away. In my gift, I can do anything.
exactly.
In my gift.
Yep.
Now, the challenge is for people, this is where they get stuck, is what is my gift? And you start to see these patterns through life. It's almost like you can't see it as you're in it. The
Right.
beauty of faith is you get to step without seeing fully the picture. But if you reflect back, you'll have a noticing of all the things that kind of led you to be where you are today,
One
right?
question, without question.
And then in that lane, yes, you can do anything.
Well, it's like I said, I could talk karate and all this other stuff all day.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time when you train in martial arts, this is God's honest truth. I say I don't have to beat you in here because you could probably, you're not the best guy when you walk in. Some guys I've trained with have been
Yeah.
pros, right? Do this for a living. or
Yeah.
do it on the side, and you could tell the scars on their face. I said, I don't have to beat anybody in here. I just got to be able to defend myself against someone who's out of shape.
Right.
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 So like when
You would whoop my butt.
I'm not saying yes or no. I don't
Yeah.
know what you know. I don't
Yeah.
want to find out. Like
Yeah.
every
Me
martial
either.
artist, but like when you start coming to that perspective, you're like, man, yeah, I'm getting blown away by this other black belt.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't got to beat you, man. I just got to be like, if somebody gets out of pocket and I have to defend myself that knows nothing,
Yeah.
I at least have a get out of jail free card to
Yeah. Yeah.
get right.
Yeah.
So when you, to your point, when you measure your skill set in that regard, right, you're like, I'm good. I'm perfectly good. Like
Yep.
I just have to be regular dad that I can handle myself on a small level
Yep.
scenario, and life is good. And I love the point where you say you better find out real quick what you can make it at and where you can achieve in your particular skill set and realm, because then you won't chase things that are unreasonable for yourself.
But don't deny that you're on the right path, because I couldn't have foreseen this. And if I had foreseen all the things that went into making me who I am today, I would have given up. It would have been so overwhelming that I would have quit.
Yeah.
And so don't try to see the path. Trust that the path you're taking is going to lead you exactly where you need to be, but step. You
Right.
have to step.
Right.
And I look back over the 15 years from 2009 to here, I was in a completely different industry. I had a completely different mindset. I went to one course that opened my mind, and then this series of events started happening. And over 15 years, it was an adaptation and an evolution of being who I am today. And it was a lot of hard work, tears, sweat, crying, defeat, all of that. All of that.
It's just like making a podcast. Like people, like when I first started this, I don't think people understand the work you actually have to do. People have no idea, right? All they see is, like people like, oh, you just slap on a set of headphones and you get a chance to just, you better know what you're doing. It's editing, it's getting guests, it's making sure you have compelling content, it's promoting the content, it's making sure that people want to listen to it, right? Anybody can go in the kitchen and cook. Not everybody's going to get people to buy it and actually make it a sustainable product. And, you want to talk about failures. How many times do food companies have to put people in test rooms as allergies? Is it going to kill somebody? Is it going to pass food and safety standards? There's a multitude of things that have to pass in order for something to be coming to market. It didn't just end up on your shelf and you're throwing it in your grocery cart and you're autopiloting it on the way out the door.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, I'm sure there's some food scientists right now probably crying home to their husband or wife, like, I'm under pressure from Pillsbury to create the next X, Y, and Z, and I get my butt kicked because everything's sucking when people are in this test room and it's not passing muster.
Right. Right.
It's just the truth.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. So I always ask people this, you're so smart and you're so accomplished. Where can people find Nicholas Smith?
Yeah, my12journeys.com. So if you go to my12journeys.com, you'll see everything we're up to. And, our podcast is on there. We've done 330 episodes so far.
Wonderful.
And just a lot of resources there, a great community, the Tribe of Giants. Also on YouTube on Wake Up with Giants TV. That's our podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, come check it out. It's for you. Everything we do, it's like a Bryan Adams song. Everything I do it for you.
Everything about that movie was great except Kevin Costner's accent.
Yeah, right. Right.
Woo! You didn't notice it as a kid. The movie, I didn't notice the movie as a kid. And then all of a sudden, I got a little older. I was like, you know what? He did kind of pack it in on that accent halfway through the movie.
Yeah, that's funny, dude.
It's still a great movie.
Rewatch.
Yeah, it's still a great. God bless the soul of Alan Rickman.
Yeah,
it's great, and that's a great song, by the way, too.
It is a good song.
It's a great song. I got to tell you, I love the positive energy you bring out, the people that you're helping, and you came from a authentic place of perspective, what you went through. So you're not faking the funk when you're telling people that ultimately chase your dreams and get those negative thoughts out of your head.
Yeah, I'm right there with them. I'm right on the bridge with you, right side by side with you. I'm not the guru. I'm the guide that will go first.
Exactly. Oh, for sure. It's almost like, I went across, a suspension bridge in Vancouver. And, I've told, when people saw the pictures, they're like, I would never go across that. And I'm not saying I'm some daredevil. I'm not saying I'm the greatest accomplished dude in the world. But I'm like, that's why I wasn't on the bridge with you, man.
Yeah.
Because you weren't going to do it.
Right. If you're willing to step, I'll step with you.
Exactly.
I love that.
It's been a pleasure, man. That's like I said, I can't thank you enough. Sunnyside, Utah. Thank you, Nicholas Smith.
Thank you.